Okay, so this video is going to be me explaining about the cardiac cycle and myocardium. Okay, so first of all, the cardiac cycle has to do with the heart. Basically, the cardiac cycle is the cycle that describes how blood is pumped into the heart and how it's pumped out of the heart, and just the whole um, circulation of blood flow through the human body, and how that works via the cardiac cycle and myocardium. So basically, what is myocardium? Let's answer that question first. So, myocardium has to do with the second layer or middle layer of the heart. The heart is made up of three layers, and the middle one is called myocardium, so the middle layer of the heart. And it's it's a very muscular layer of the heart. It's basically the heart muscle that's responsible for contracting and forcing blood out of the heart. So that's the function that it plays in regards to the heart. It contracts and the heart and forces blood out of the heart. So that's the role that the myocardium plays um, in the cardiac cycle, as well as in regards to how the heart works in terms of forcing the blood out of the heart. So, okay, so it's also the myocardium is also, you can also call it the heart muscle as well, for the reason that I just said. So basically, the myocardium receives its blood supply via the right and left coronary arteries, and those coronary arteries branch off the aorta and encircle the heart. So, and then um, those um, there's coronary veins that run alongside the arteries and drain all coronary blood into a larger vein, and that vein is called the coronary sinus, which deposits blood into the right atrium of the heart. So the heart is composed. The heart overall is composed of four chambers, but there's the right atrium, and then there's the left atrium, and then um, you know uh, the two other chambers of the heart are called the lower the left ventricle and the right ventricle. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that's basically what myocardium is. So now let's go into the cardiac cycle. So basically, what is the cardiac cycle? So the cardiac cycle, it basically refers to the repeating pattern of contraction and relaxation of the heart. So basically, sorry, I have an itch on my nose. So basically, the cardiac cycle has two phases. It has a contraction phase, and then it has a relaxation phase. And the contraction phase is called systole, and the relaxation phase is called diastole. So in the contraction phase, or the systole, blood is ejected from the heart. So in that phase, the heart contracts, um, and blood is ejected from the heart. And in terms of how much blood is ejected per beat, so per how many times your heart beats, or no, I worded that wrong. Per how many times, well, no, per heartbeat. So yeah, and that amount that it ejects per heartbeat or per beat is about 2/3. So there's about 2/3 of the blood ejected from the heart out of all the blood that's, in the heart, during the contraction phase that gets ejected out of the heart. And it leaves that 2/3 of blood leaves the heart via the ventricles. And then, as I said, there's the diastole or relaxation phase. And basically, the diastole phase or relaxation phase, during that phase, what happens? Sorry, I'm just trying to find it in the textbook because I blanked on what exactly happens in that phase. But I have my textbook open, so I'll find it. Okay, so basically, the diastole. Sorry, you guys. I'm just glancing, trying to find where it talks about diastole. Okay. Okay, so, okay, well, sorry for this long pause. Okay, so basically, after that, blood, 2/3 of blood is ejected via the ventricles, as I said. The blood or the ventricles contract and deliver blood into both the systemic and pulmonary circuits. And okay, yeah, and so what's left after that, if you do the math, 2/3 is ejected, so that just leaves 1/3 in the ventricles. So then the ventricles fill with blood during the next diastole relaxation phase. So and also, that's basically what happens during the cardiac cycle. And if and the cardiac cycle overall, like the total cardiac cycle, it lasts about 0.8 seconds, and then there's a 0.5 seconds that's spent in the diastole, and then the remaining 0.3 seconds is dedicated to systole again. So, for example, if the heart rate increases from 75 beats per minute to 180 beats per minute, for example, during heavy exercise, there is actually a reduction in the time spent in both systole and diastole. And it's important to note that a rising heart rate results in a greater time reduction in diastole, whereas systole is less affected. So there's not as much of a time reduction in systole if the heart rate increases. Okay, yeah. So that's basically how the cardiac cycle works. There's, the two phases: contraction, systole, and relaxation, diastole. And then also there's some pressure changes that occur during the cardiac cycle. So all throughout the cardiac cycle, the pressure within the heart chambers, of which there are four, as I said, rises and falls. So when the atria are relaxed, blood comes into them by way of venous circulation. And as they fill, the pressure inside them gradually increases. So approximately 70% of the blood that enters through the atria during diastole actually flows directly into the ventricles through the atrioventricular valves prior to the atria contracting. And then upon the atrial contraction, or the atria contracting, the atrial pressure rises and forces most of the remaining 30% of the atrial blood into the ventricles. And the pressure in the ventricles is low while they're actually filling. So, however, when the atria contracts, that ventricular pressure, it increases slightly. And as the ventricles then contract, the pressure actually spikes or rises sharply, and that closes the atrioventricular valves, and this helps to prevent backflow into the atria. So yeah. And then as soon as that ventricular pressure exceeds the pressure of the pulmonary artery and the aorta, the pulmonary and aortic valves open, and the blood is forced into both the pulmonary and systemic circulations. So for the pulmonary, that's what carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs. And then the systemic circulations, that's what carries oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. So yeah. So that's basically the cardiac cycle and myocardium. Yeah. All right. I think that is it. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain it any more than that. Okay. Bye.